Good morning. Welcome to Behaviour on Arrow FM. It's 10:30, Sunday, 27th of March, 2022. This morning I'll be interviewing my friend Lester, who's based in Melbourne. But that won't be till 11 o'clock. We'll be chatting about music a little bit, but also about the films of Quentin Tarantino, which is a subject that interests us and a lot of people out there as well. We'll be just doing a top 10. Well, our individual top 10s, and then maybe justifying them over the course of a few minutes. I do have a bit of music I've been listening to this week to play, and we can start that off with a tune by a band that I'm a huge fan of. They were quite well known for a few years in New Zealand and then sort of went their separate ways. I do play a later band that one of them is involved with, Unknown Mall Orchestra, quite a bit. But I do this song in particular. I was listening to the other day, and it's a very good track that I quite like, and it's got some good cowbell in it too, which is sort of a thing that some people quite like. I'll play it now. It's called Take It, I Don't Want It, and it's by the Mint Chicks. It's a good Sunday morning, 10:30 up and at 'em track, so check this one out. Yeah, that's actually the end of that track. It's quite funny, isn't it? Yeah, good album. That one, that album is, well, it's actually the album is actually the first word in it is an obscenity, which is quite funny. It's called F the Golden Youth, which is, that's a sentiment Some people have in New Zealand. What else have we got to play this morning in the lead up to Lester coming on the show is more music that I listened to earlier this week. This is a track that I didn't play it. I did play it last week. So we'll play something else. We're not going to play that track that I was just about to play because I'm pretty sure I played it last week. Oh, there's a really good track I found yesterday, but it is just the main lyrics in it are obscene language, and maybe you don't want to cause complaints, you don't want to cause distemper on the airwaves, so you can't play that song. I'd urge people out there, if you want to listen to a cool, I don't know if you'd call it punk, I suppose you could call it post-punk possibly. It's by a band called Miss June, and the track's called Drool, D-R-O-O-L. Play that one later. It's a goodie. But I could continue with a theme that I was on last week's show, and that was playing a little bit of Mr. Bungle. This track here is called Backstrokin'. Check this one out. We're just going to radio edit the end of that track there because there's a little bit of obscenity near the end of that track. But that's another one from the album Disco Volante, which Mr. Bungle put out in 1994. And I was a big fan of that album then, and I'm a big fan of that album now still. So I urge other people to check that one out. It's a little bit odd and a little bit disturbing, but also, it has its moments that are quite uplifting, and I don't know, perhaps you could even say they're extravagant moments musically. Very talented musicians, that crew. Like a lot of, there's people out there. A lot of people. We could go into this track here, actually, straight after that, Mr. Bungle, which this is Enoch Light and the Light Orchestra, Song of India. Check it out. so that's Enoch Light and the Light Orchestra with Song of India. Good little number, that one. I've been a fan of that for many years. I think I heard it as a child at Nana and Granddad's, I think, possibly on a record. They had a record player, and I used to play the odd record. They did have a really cool soundtrack of 2001: A Space Odyssey, and it actually had that track on it. Also, Sprach Zarathustra, which I was absolutely spellbound by when I heard it as a child. And I think it might be a good number to play right now, actually. So I will. Here it is. It's crack-a-lackin', isn't it? Here's a good track. This is Oh Yeah by Foxygen. Yeah, check this one out. Pretty good. Not too bad.
If it makes you feel fine, you can scream and shout. If it makes you feel happy, sing it, oh yeah. I love my baby, I love my, oh yeah. Yeah, baby. How come you got to make a fool of me when you know it's true to me? Yeah. if it makes you feel fine, yeah. And you can lose your faith if it puts you in your place. And you can chew on gum if it makes you have fun, And you can drink green soup on the way from the kitchen. My roller skates are bitchin'.
Yeah, so that was Oh Yeah, Foxygen. Recently discovered by me that band, a two-piece from Indiana, if I remember correctly. They released that album, 2013. Did I just say that? I think I may have, but nothing like a bit of repetition. Here's an apt song for the... Is it clever to play an apt song for the weather conditions? And like, would I play a song about it being sunny if it was sunny? Yeah, I probably would. So I'm going to play this song about rain in Brazil because it's raining in New Zealand right now. So it's a lovely little number for your Sunday morning. It's called Aquas de Marco. And this is the version by Alice Regina and... who's the other guy? Antonio Carlos Jobim. Probably said that wrong.
Pau, é pedra, é o fim do caminho, é o resto de toco, é pouco sozinho, é caco de vidro, é a vida, é o sol, é a noite, é a morte, é o laço, é o anzol, é peroba do campo,
é o nó da madeira, é o matita pereira,
é madeira de vento,
da ribanceira,
é mistério profundo,
é o queira ou não queira,
é o vento ventando, é o fim da ladeira, é a viga, é o vão, festa da comeira,
é a chuva chovendo, é conversa ribeira das águas de março, é o fim da canseira,
é o pé, é o chão,
é a mastradeira,
passarinho na mão,
pedra de atiradeira,
é uma ave no céu,
é uma ave no chão,
é um regato, é uma fonte,
é um pedaço de pão,
é o fundo do poço, é o fim do caminho, no rosto desgosto, é pouco sozinho, é estrepe,
é prego,
é uma ponta,
é ponto,
é pino,
pingando,
é uma conta,
é conto,
é peixe, é gesto,
é uma prata brilhando,
é a luz da manhã,
é o tijolo chegando,
é a lenha, é o dia, é o fim da picada, é a garrafa de cana, o estilhaço na estrada,
é o projeto da casa, é o corpo na cama, é o carro enguiçado, é a lama,
é um passo,
é uma ponte,
é um sapo,
é uma rã,
é resto
de mato,
na luz
da manhã,
são as águas de março fechando o verão, é a promessa de vida no teu coração.
uma cobra, é um pau. É João,
É José
é um espinho,
na mão,
é um corte.
no pé.
São as águas de março, fechando o verão. É a promessa de vida no teu coração. É pau,
É pedra
é o fim
do caminho,
é um resto,
de topo,
é um pouco,
sozinho. É um passo, é uma ponte,
é um sapo, é uma rã,
é um belo horizonte.
é uma febre terçã.
São as águas de março,
Fechando o verão, é a promessa de vida no teu coração.
pau,
Pedra, inho,
peixe,
coco,
oco,
inho,
agro,
hidro,
ida,
ó,
ponte,
horte,
aço.
sol. São as águas de março, fechando o verão. É a promessa de vida no teu
Coração, badaba, baziza, zazaziza, azanamenya, anandede, banandede, banandede, andanande, andanada, andanandede, andanandede, andanada, ué.
Yeah, Rains of March, I think, or Waters of March. The title of that song translates to, if I remember correctly, the title is Aguas de Março, I think. That's if I've got my my reading right there. Yeah, Waters of March, pretty sure, which is summer rain, I think, in Brazil. But yeah, nice little number. Rainy track, that one. We'll have Lester on in a moment. I'm going to give him a call. In the meantime, there's one more track that I listened to earlier this week that I was going to play, and it's a bit of a classic. It's from a man called Phil Collins, and it's probably a song that's on commercial radio quite a bit, but yeah, I actually heard it on a playlist the other day, and I thought, Phil's just playing some good keyboards there, isn't he? He probably arranged the whole track himself, possibly. I'd say he would have had some input from elsewhere, but he's a bit of a ledge, old Phil. So, yeah, this is Susudio. Everyone's probably heard this track a lot, but it's nothing like a bit of a journey back in time to the early 80s or whenever it was it came out.
Studio.
Right, we did a bit of a radio edit there because we've got Lester on the line here from Melbourne. Hey, bro, can you hear me there?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hi.
Yeah, cool. Right, we're on air, Arrow FM, Masterton. So you've been living in Melbourne now for how long, mate?
For a couple of years, just before, I think 2019 I moved over, around this time actually.
Oh, okay, and that was what, just for a bit of a change from Wellington, where you'd been living?
Yeah, 20 years in Wellington. I thought it was time to make the great leap across the ditch.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And that was, and what you do? You're still working as a brewer, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, that's
cool.
correct. Yeah.
Brewing beer,
Yeah,
eh?
still there. Well, not so much these days. It's more hard seltzers now at the moment.
It's
So,
it's what hard what? Cider.
Seltzers.
Oh, seltzers. Oh, wow, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's everyone seems to be drinking them. It's the breweries. It's all about making money at the moment. So especially after the last couple of years of the lockdown, the industry's been pretty hard hit. So everything's sort of come back up to everything's sort of come back to life now. So yeah, make back that money. That's what they're trying to do. So seltzer is the one.
Yeah, I don't mind a seltzer, but I think I'm more of a fan of.
Beer.
I quite like beer and cider, but then I like those. There's these sort of things there's a outfit and they make these cans of drink called Pal, and I don't even know, is that a seltzer? I don't even know what that is actually. It's like
I think it might be a seltzer. Yeah, I've heard of them.
Yeah, they're pretty good. They're sort of really nice and light on flavour and sort of quite aerated, and so don't mind them.
The color on the cans are like pastel colors. Is that right?
Yeah, that's them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's them. Yeah.
No, they definitely were
wow.
a breath of fresh air on the New Zealand liquor market when they came out.
Yeah, well, the liquor market's sort of been dominated recently with hazy beer, and I think it won't take too long for the seltzer market to sort of hit New Zealand. It won't. It's so big over here.
Yeah, there's a few sort of doing arounds here, and I've had one of them, and I just really didn't like it. I can't remember. Oh, Max. It was a Max seltzer, and it was like, I don't know. Some people like it, but yeah, not me. But that's cool, man. So, but you still do a bit of beer brewing as well.
Yeah, still do beer brewing. Still being part of the industry. I've been part of the industry since. I've been working closely in the New Zealand brewing industry since 2007.
Yeah.
So there was pre-craft beer sort of explosion, which happened back in 2010. And yeah, it's been a really great ride. Seeing the industry expand to the enormity that it is now. And just all these different. So many, it's gone so big now that it's employing so many people, and there's so many positives to the industry. The industry back home is so supportive as well. Different kettle of beast over here in Australia. Because, I don't know, things just seem to be a lot more sort of competitive over here, and I don't know, everyone's very sort of withheld when it comes to sort of being supportive, so to speak. I feel anyway.
Oh, just through the competition.
Yeah. Melbourne, like a couple of years ago, I think they only had something like 140 breweries. This is like 3 or 4 years ago. And then within like 1 or 2 years, it exploded to like 700.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was huge.
That is significant, isn't it? It's crazy.
It was massive.
Yeah.
And so like there were a lot of homebrewers out there were a lot of investors out there who were like trying to get into the market, and now it's a really difficult thing to do to sort of sell your product now, because if you're fighting for shelf space, you're fighting for tap space now and stuff and everything, and you really have to be on your game over here. Can't really get away with making unsuitable beer, even though that still exists.
Yeah, no, I bet it's sort of a level up Australia in a lot of ways, and across many sorts of industries, isn't it? It's just a far bigger.
Yeah.
It's just that the market's that much bigger, and there's so many more people. It's 5 times the population of New Zealand, basically, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, it's
approximately.
strange because the craft beer market has had to be not mediated, but like quality control has had to be determined by the public, so to speak. So it's quite difficult. Like if you look at some of the bigger breweries, all their quality control are done within house. So like all your specs, like your colours and your hazes, your alcohols and everything. Obviously, alcohol's a really important thing. You need to have that measured, otherwise you get paid tax and blah blah. When the craft beer industry happened, they had to regulate kind of themselves in regards to styles and tastes and stuff and everything.
Yeah.
So in New Zealand, at one point I would say there was like a top tier amount of IPAs that were released in New Zealand. For example, the 8Y Hot Wire would be up there. The Epic Pale Ale would have been up there as well. Liberty Oak Brother would be definitely up there. And everything, all the other IPAs in the country would have to have measured up to that as well. But there was that crucial standard of making sure that all your product is consistent.
Yeah.
And retain that consistency, which is what the big boys do. So like some of these craft beer people can get a bit snooty about some of the big guys. But, you drink a Steinlager in New Zealand, it's going to taste exactly the same as when you drink Steinlager in the UK. There's that quality assurance that wherever you go to drink something like that, it's going to taste exactly the same.
Have you ever tried Parrot Dog?
Oh, I love Parrot Dog. Great beer.
Yeah, good
Great
beer,
company.
isn't it? Yeah, I'm a big fan of those guys. I think they make.
They've expanded quite largely. They started out in 2011 and 2012, just in a small place in, I think it was Vivian Street in Wellington.
Yeah.
And now they've expanded out to Lyle Bay, and big employer out there.
I think they've done really well, haven't they? They're sort of, and they've maintained. They have like what you were just talking about, quality assurance. They've definitely sort of maintained a level of brewing that is, creating a name for them, and people are recognise their beer now. And they're sort of there's a bar in Carterton now that actually has Parrot Dog on tap, which was a nice surprise yesterday when I went in there. Yeah, I was like, nice.
That's great.
Yeah, quite remarkable.
Yeah,
really.
because I think that's one of the difficult things in New Zealand is distribution. It's like I've heard many people throw the idea out of like starting their own distribution company, but the price, the payoff for it, it's just not worth it eventually. Like because you just don't have the kind of backing that someone like a Lion Nathan would have, because all their deliveries are done in house. So they can spread costs over the whole company as opposed to like if you're independent trying to travel from Wellington to Carterton, to drop off 2 kegs or something like that. That could be quite costly.
Yeah, I wonder what their distribution model is. Actually, that'd be interesting to find out from the. I should ask the people who own the bar how they get that beer in there.
Yeah, no, that would be quite interesting actually. But I would presume it would be through a certain keg company.
That'd be it, wouldn't it?
New Zealand, like Kegstar, Convoy Kegs, Red Kegs, and I think they may deal with the distribution. It gets a bit murky at that point because you don't know who are the people who need to make a phone call to the drivers to pick up whatever it needs to be picked up to take it to wherever it needs to be. So
Yeah. Well, speaking of murky, let's move over to our topic of conversation for the day, which is which you came up with actually, Lester, my friend, and that is the films of Quentin Tarantino. That's a.
Yes.
This is a. We're going on a huge tangent here from brewing to Tarantino, and that's good.
Yeah. I think Tarantino would appreciate that. I'm sure in some way we'll bring a Tarantino-esque flip, like he does in his films, where he films everything out of sync and stuff like that. And maybe we'll be able to sort of bring it back to something eventually. Anyway.
Yeah. So you did a bit of. I had a brief look over the films that I'd seen, and I think I did work out that I've only actually seen 9 because I've never seen Death Proof, and that was directed by another guy and then half directed by Tarantino. So technically, it's classed as one of his 10 films, and I haven't actually seen it, so I've only done a top 9. So shall we? How do you want to do this? You want to tell? Why don't you tell me?
Well, I reckon we should go from. Now, the listeners will have to remember that this list is purely our opinion.
No, this is the definitive list, actually, Lester.
This is yes, very definitive. We've heard of it here today, first time today. And it's also because certain movies will be ranked lower. It's not because of that either you or I share a strong dislike for the movie. All these movies are great films in their own right. There's just certain movies that kind of don't really resonate with my own sensibilities, in the sense that I couldn't really relate to them as thematically. Everything else, script, director photographies and stuff like that, cinematography and everything, always brilliant. But yeah, some of them I just couldn't really sort of meld into. Anyway, so I reckon we should do least favorite to top favorite. Do you want to do that?
All right, yeah, sounds good.
You want to start?
All right, I'll go. My number 9, because I'm skipping 10 because I haven't seen them all, obviously. But was Hateful Eight. That was coming in quite low on my ranking because though I appreciated it was a clever movie and it had its moments, I don't know. It just never really. When I came away, I was like, that's not as good as the other films that I've seen by him. Basically, that was sort of my reckoning of it.
Yeah. I ranked Hateful Eight at 10 as well. It felt like a stage play, which I'm not. It was not a bad thing. But it was definitely like a. Because it's really only based in one room, most of the film. And I never felt drawn to revisit it again, only because I don't really like plays.
Yeah.
I've never really been a fan of Shakespeare. Well, actually, I like Hamlet. But yeah, that's it. The performances were great. The cinematography was amazing with the snow and stuff and everything. Was really, really, it was shot really beautifully.
Yeah, it was lovely. I mean, he always makes a nice looking film, doesn't he?
Yeah, well, he still films on. He still films on reel to reel. So real film. So
yeah.
it's not digital. So it has that grainy quality to it that, if you really sort of measure it up to like a digital film, that it just there's something that's it's the same as like obviously when you take a photo with a digital camera compared to one with an actual like film in it. There's just something that has a lot more depth.
Authenticity and like sort of, and he's a big fan of that sort of golden age of cinema, isn't he? He's right into that sort of aesthetic, that sort of classic. Yeah.
Yesterday, I had my birthday yesterday. I shared this list with about 10 other people.
Yeah,
and they listed their rankings as well. And so out of the 10 people, 3 people agreed that the Hateful Eight was at number 10.
Only 3. Since that's interesting. I sort of, as you said before, that it's a film that you probably wouldn't go back and watch again. I remember watching it, and I sort of watched a lot of it, and then I got quite sleepy, went to sleep, and then a few days later I was like, I should watch the end of that film. I just want to see what happens. And then it was sort of, and then I got through it, and it was like, well, yeah, I can sort of, that's quite a clever story, but didn't ever sort of feel compelled to watch it again. It was what it was, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, there wasn't anything really gripping. Like it wasn't not that it's going to be gripping, but yeah, no, I agree with you. I just didn't really feel engaged.
There weren't. I also noticed with that film that it was almost quite predictable what happened as well. It was like it wasn't like there was any sort of major twist that you were like, oh wow, I didn't expect that to happen. It was like it was just sort of a progression of things, and you were just like, oh yeah, okay, I can see why that happened, and that's not really surprising, and okay, yeah, and that was sort of it.
It almost felt like you had become accustomed to Tarantino's sort of cut and paste style, particularly with time and stuff like that. How you take the B story part at where the A story part should be, and all that sort of stuff and everything. Similar to what happens in Pulp Fiction, for instance. Yeah, it becomes predictable. You're not surprised by anything, and yeah, I can see why you only watched half of it and decided to watch the other half later on in the week, because it's quite boring. You're not engaged.
I wasn't fully engaged in it at all. But so what's next on the list for me was my number 8 was Kill Bill 2. Which is it's down there quite low, but but it was a difficult list to make because I really do like Kill Bill 2, and I thought it was and when I first saw it, I was like, wow, this is such a cool film. But as it stands against the rest of them, it just got shunted down the list a bit, basically. Yeah.
Well, Kill Bill 2 is that's a really difficult one because. I knew a lot of people who didn't really get into Kill Bill 2 because of the fact that it was kind of underwhelming, especially coming off of Kill Bill 1.
Yeah.
But people tended to forget that, that he had set those 2 films to be actually one film, obviously.
He had, yeah.
And if someone had actually done a re-edit of the film and shown the film in sequence of who she takes revenge on in proper order, as opposed to like in movies, it shows like her taking her revenge on Vivica A. Fox and then Lucy Liu's character after that. But Lucy Liu's character is first in the film, obviously.
Yeah.
So if they actually re-edited it like it would be, maybe the film would flow better. Who knows? I've never seen it like that before.
Well, I'm interested. What was where was Kill Bill 2 on your list?
I had it at number 4.
Number 4, yeah. I can understand why. I mean, once I got, the funny thing is that once I had the Hateful Eight down the bottom, it was very hard to pick out of the rest where they went. It was actually quite, and it was a struggle, to be honest, and then justify why they were where they were.
It got pretty hard there, kind of like, oh, okay, now what's the reason for that being there?
You have to have sort of your reasoning, quite sound as to why you've put what where in your own mind. Yeah. So,
Kill Bill Volume 2, very a lot of people agree with you that I spoke to yesterday. A lot of nines, a lot of eights. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of people sort of agreed that it wasn't their favourite one either. It's definitely on the lower part of the list.
Yeah, no, and then my next was Inglourious Bastards. I had that at 7, which was difficult because I do actually really like that film in some ways, and I really like some of it, and then some of it, it was okay, and it definitely had its moments, and I did like some of the characters were excellent, and just the way it played out was sort of quite amusing in some ways, and it had its sort of its high moments and its low moments, and again it has this really nice, beautiful, well shot film, and some sort of clever work with the cameras and then by the actors. So yeah, definitely a good film, but sort of languishing at number 7 for on my list. Yeah.
Well, I had Inglourious Bastards at 9.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I felt that it was very. Oh, people are going to hate me for this, but I felt that it was very pretentious in its script.
Yeah.
It was very overly talky, like far more so than Quentin Tarantino's film really needs to be. If you look at any of his scripts that he had done, like early in his career, or even like stuff like From Dusk to Dawn or like 4 Rooms or something like that, it's very, very heavy dialogue, and obviously he's one of the best screenwriters in working today. But I just found some of those scenes just so long. The beginning scene it's like, I love the tension that it creates. It's particularly that start scene with Christoph Waltz, and where the family's hiding underneath the floorboards.
Yeah.
And very, very tense scene. But oh my gosh, does it just go on forever? And it just. And then there's the bar scene where the Inglourious Bastards, who's it? Michael Fassbender.
Yeah.
In the Nazi uniform, and they're playing the charades cards thing, and that dialogue is just so long. I couldn't. Just get to the point. I got it. I know what's going to happen here. They're going to have a shootout. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was sort of the reason it sort of dropped down the list. There was that. It did have its good points, but I found that it a struggle in some ways. And then some people had come to me, friends of mine, and said that, oh man, have you seen Inglourious Bastards yet? It's so good. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll check it out. And then I remember being like, yeah, it is quite good, but it's like, it's not up there with his best stuff, really.
No. So this was a mixed bag. So with everyone else, it was a mixture of like low and high. So there was an interest in it.
Yeah, interesting that it was sort of high for some people. I can see why. I suppose in certain ways it did have some really, really good elements, but sort of compared to some of his other stuff, I didn't rate it that highly. And then the next up was at 6 was Kill Bill 1. That was sort of my place for it, even though. When I first saw that movie, I was just like, "Oh my god, this is amazing!" And but then there were it was like, I know that the scene with where she fought like the 30 assassins or whoever they were, and she killed them all. It was good, and I understood why he did it that way. But then it was like, it's a bit too much. But it was sort of. But then he was doing that on purpose, wasn't he? Wasn't he really?
Yeah. Well, it was a homage of it, but that whole movie was just a homage to all to martial art, kung fu, westerns, stories.
I know, but it did have it actually had that really cool, the sort of psychopathic young girl who had the amazing mace weapon thing with the ball and the chain.
Go-Go.
She's like such a remarkable character for a film, like to have this absolutely, No, it was that film. Yeah, it was really when it came out,
It's one of the greatest.
Yeah, it was so different.
It's one of the greatest fight scenes put to real.
Mm. Yeah, no,
he put it. He said that he wanted to film the best fight scene that he can ever sort of
yes,
make.
It was pretty cool too. Like that ball and chain weapon was absolutely spectacular, and
it just amazes me so much, like how you go about planning that sort of stuff.
Yeah, setting up the shots and how it all
set up the shots and all like different storyboard for the shots and stuff like that and everything. So you got every single frame like drawn out and stuff like that and everything. And you come along and blah, blah. It's like that blows my mind. It really does.
Where did you have Kill Bill 1?
I had that at number 2.
Oh yeah, I can understand
why. Because it was I don't know. It was I've always had really sort of. I've always been attracted to martial arts film, westerns. I grew up with westerns with my dad and my cousins, and yeah, I don't know. It really sort of hit me. It hit me more so than most of the other sort of films, Tarantino's films. I don't know whether that makes me basic, but yeah, I think it was 21 when that movie came out, and I think we were like all sort of hoping for another kind of Matrixy style sort of year, especially post 1999.
Yeah,
with the great year of film that was. And then Kill Bill came out. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I remember when it came out, and it was just, it blew me away. It was very, very, but then over time, I've sort of rationalised it. You know how you do with stuff, you sort of rationalise it into a place in your mind, and it's sort of that's where it is now. And I can totally understand why it'd be up there for people like yourself and others, because it does have. It just is a really cool film. It definitely is. It's
real cool.
There's
something real cool about it. Like,
cool. No, I remember when I first saw it, I was like, "Wow, this is just cool. This is really well made. It's got these amazing characters, and it's got something like." The one of the best things about Kill Bill 1 I found was that it had like these really powerful female characters who were just like kicking ass.
Oh yes,
and he does get quite a bit of stick for misogyny, Tarantino, and I think it's pretty unfair in a lot of ways because he's one guy that has tried over the years to have like these really powerful female characters. And it is.
Well, you'll soon see what my number one and why that's one of the reasons why. My number one Tarantino film is what it is, strong female character.
Yeah. Well, I'll continue up on my next one was Reservoir Dogs, number 5.
Number 5, yeah.
Yeah, I had it there because it was when I first saw it. It was just like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. This is so cool. And it's such a simple film, but it's just really clever. And I did like the way that he didn't glorify the characters in the way that a lot of films did with gangsters and so on, like that, where they'd make, there was a lot. I mean, Scorsese did it a lot. He really glorified. He really glorified gangsters. But then, he would have like his tragic sort of endings, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, it's bad to be a gangster because look at that he died." But it was sort of the way that he did it in a lot of ways was like, yeah, I found that Tarantino with that film sort of had them in a cool place, and they were sort of cool, and they had all the cool dialogue, and then they had the guns, and they were sort of kicking ass, and then they just all die, and it's not, it's not. There's no glory to it as well. It's just really ugly and dirty and horrible. And sad. As well. That's like what's so impressive about that film is that it does have all these moments where you're like, oh man, that's so terrible. Oh, those guys, and it's like, it's good. Good film.
Yeah, I had Reservoir Dogs at 5. I'm just going to go back really quickly. So So obviously Hack Lake was 10. Ghostbusters was 9.
Yeah.
Death Proof was 8.
Oh, okay, yeah. I've not seen that one
yet. 7 was Django Unchained.
Oh, yeah, 7. Yep.
Yeah. It's just, just, again, most of those films in that lower register were films that are just kind of like, yeah, that's all right. And I'm not really a big Leonardo DiCaprio fan, so
yeah,
anything that he has in it, I kind of steer away from. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 months. Oh, it gets about 6. So 5 years, Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah.
Such a very, very sort of meat and bones kind of movie. You know, it was so it was done on such a tight budget. You heard stories that the actors were actually donating, well, not donating, but lending, the use of their cars and stuff like that. And then other, helping to finance the film.
Yeah. Yeah, I did read some of that. I read about that, yeah.
And, obviously, I think for me, it deserves on my list to be at 5 because, it was his sort of high Hollywood, I'm a director now. And, all that stuff that he had learnt doing, like, all screenplays and, all scripts and stuff like that for TV and for other films. It was nice to see, the debut and see, wow, there was just this person at the time. Because people have to remember that particular time. What Reservoir Dogs that came out 92, 93.
Yeah, it was like definitely early 90s. Yeah, like 93 or something.
Early
yeah.
90s. God, what kind of films was like going on around then? You didn't have that kind of gritty kind of. I don't think you really had that kind of gritty stuff that was out there at the moment at that time. Mind you, Tarantino has his own particular style. So. Oh no,
definitely that grittiness had sort of faded out of film quite a bit over the 80s, I thought, and early 90s. It had been sort of very much there in the 70s and 60s, but then it wasn't. I remember all those. It's just similar films in the 70s that were, that same type of sort of brutality and realness, and then it sort of went away for about a decade. Yeah. And
you can thank George Lucas and
all that stuff, and Steven Spielberg, but Reservoir Dogs definitely brought that back. And let's just I reckon we could just say, I'll quickly tell you my top 4, and then you say yours, and then we can move on from there. So I'll go 4 Django Unchained. I had it there because I really liked some of the characters and just the cleverness of the story. And I actually quite like Leonardo DiCaprio. I think I think he can be underrated by some people, and I think overrated by others. But I'm a fan of his work. And then I had Jackie Brown at 3 because I had Jackie Brown at 1, and then I was like, because I love that film and I just love it's such a cool film. It's like just really the story's great, the characters are amazing, and it's just really well done. But so it was difficult to pop it down to 3, but Pulp Fiction was then 2, and I actually went with one that a lot of people don't like. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is my number 1. It's probably because I saw it. I saw it a couple of times in the last 4 years. I saw it at the cinema first, and then I watched it again at home. And I've got pretty good sound justification in my own mind of why I've got it at number 1. Yeah.
What's that?
Well, just because I think it's like it is how he does these homages, and I think that film, well, for me, from what I got from it was that it was like a homage to just the film in general and the film industry over the past 100 years. He tried to pull in like these different aspects of it, and again, it's just really well shot and has some really iconic scenes like the part where the guy's galloping along on the horse, and it's just like, oh wow, this reminds me of so many Wild West films, and then the driving scene with Brad Pitt driving the car through the city. It's like, that's a homage to like driving movies, and then the sort of buddy aspect with Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio's characters, and then just the funny way Leonardo DiCaprio plays that character in the film, where he's sort of like, in private, he sort of finds life or communication quite difficult, but then when he's on screen, he just turns into a different person, and I quite like that. And then I did like the way he handled the Sharon Tate character, in that the way he did it was that she didn't have much to say in the film, but she was also, it was like putting her on a pedestal, like in real life, sort of society did do with, and still does with, like sort of superstar females they just get handled differently by society, and I think he was sort of pointing to that in the way that he portrayed that character in that film. And it's sort of, I have read a lot of reviews where people just didn't like that film at all, and they say things like, oh well, he had too much of, it was sort of too much about the two guys and not enough about Sharon Tate, and and it's like, yeah, okay, I can sort of see why you'd say that, but I think you missed the point in some ways, in my mind. Yeah,
I agree with you. Yeah. Definitely. I had that actually at number 6.
Yeah.
Sorry if I sound like I'm in a cupboard, because I'm actually...
I can understand why it's why you'd have it there. Yeah, totally.
And yeah, it's homage to Hollywood, to LA, and that particular snapshot in time of the end of the Summer of Love, 1969. I actually had that just because I couldn't really relate to it. It was something that I really understood, and I don't know, I guess, I stopped listening to The Doors many years ago. I stopped listening to a lot of that sort of late 60s music many years ago, which is where I find my cornerstone for that kind of thing. I'll quickly rush through my top 4. So, Kill Bill Volume 2, obviously, it's 4. 3 was Pulp Fiction. 2 was Kill Bill Volume 1, and number 1 was Jackie Brown. Yeah. Now, Jackie Brown I just think that he nailed everything in that film, and it was just such a different kind of cool. You know what I mean? There was a whole sort of black exploitation, and you had the strong female character in Pam Grier, and the music was great. The casting was amazing. Robert De Niro, he was brilliant in film. But even though it's a film that I haven't really gone back to watch, it's definitely a film that when I look at that list, it really just does stand out, because it is slightly different than the rest of them. It doesn't really have that sort of glorification of violence that he's been known for, and I think it's a really great story as well.
I totally agree. Yeah, I agree. I really like that film. I've seen it about maybe 4 or 5 times. I watched it again recently, I think a year or a year and a half ago, and I was like, yeah, wow, that's so cool. But I remember first seeing it, and I was like a little bit underwhelmed. But then I saw it again. Same. I saw it again after that, and maybe a year later, and I was like, wow, this is such a cool film, So, and it was really funny. I maybe the first time around I was expecting something else, and then I appreciated the humor and stuff a lot more the second time I saw it, and it does still sort of have, it doesn't have that same level of violence in it. I did notice just when I saw it a year ago that it does have that moment where he kills the where Samuel L. Jackson's character kills that sort of street punk dude, and it's just really brutal and quick, and it's like, whoa, you know, like he just shoots him and shoves him in the boot of the car, and it's like, wow, you know, like that's just so callous, you know.
Yeah. Very final, very like quick. Sharp.
Yeah, just like game over, you're gone, mate. You know, like, and it's like, wow. And then you sort of, and it makes you think about like that element of that sort of lifestyle. It would be like that, you know. It's like, boom, you think you're going to have this sort of glorious end, but you don't. You just end up dead in a boot of a car, you know.
Yeah, exactly. that's reality, man. You know.
Yeah. No, and
no romantic endings. You know?
No. Well, what about Pulp Fiction? I mean, that was hard for me to put it to because it was almost at one, and
this list wouldn't really exist if it wasn't really for Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, what an amazing film, mate! Like,
what a touchstone of a film it was. It just blew everything out from what was around at the time. Just nothing was like it. No one had seen anything like that before, and it was like, wow, shoot, that's good. Wow, yeah.
Yeah, no, just absolutely blew everything else away when it came out. I remember a friend saying, well, he sort of didn't, he saw it before me, and then he was like, oh, I didn't really know what was going on. I didn't like it. And then I was like, oh, okay. So, yeah, and he said, like, the story was all over the place. And I was like, oh, yeah, that sounds weird. And then I saw it, and I was like, wow, it totally makes sense. The story's all over the place. But it was like, it was all over the place, so I could see why. Yeah. You know, for some people it was quite disconcerting because they weren't used to a story being told in that manner. So it was like, for me, it was almost
like the three-act structure.
Yeah, just that structural stuff. It was like a book almost in some ways. I found like it was a bit more like a book.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
Because a book would have those moments where it would have recollections and then real time, and then so it was like, what a film though, eh? So such a cool film.
Oh, from the music, obviously, the music was such an integral part. But Reservoir Dogs had a great soundtrack as well. But the Pulp Fiction soundtrack obviously sort of ushered in that whole. I don't know whether it did, but it ushered in the whole sort of like movie sound. Well, no, it didn't. Like you had a lot of war movies, so they were using a lot of Clearwater Revival and stuff like that. But
like those Tour of Duty soundtracks and stuff. Remember when they came out? And everyone was like into them for a bit. No, I know what you mean about ushering that soundtrack thing, and no, I think it did. I think Pulp Fiction had a lot to do with it because it did have a cool soundtrack, and then people would actually, of all the film soundtracks that came out and around that time, like it's about the only one that people would chuck on at a party.
You know how many people I knew who owned that soundtrack?
Yeah.
It's like they'll never own anything from like from John Williams. You wouldn't go out and or Hans Zimmer or anything like that.
Yeah,
they'll go and buy the Pulp Fiction soundtrack because it just had some really great, well thing songs, and the memory sort of comes in when you listen to songs about when you watch the film and stuff and everything.
Yeah, no, I can even hear it in my head right now, and I'm like going, yeah, man, that's such a cool song, like just some of the tracks on it, and just how he used them in the film as well was just perfect. I was like, he's that's one thing I think he nails in most of his films is the music. It's like, it's like it's just, and there's just some really. I mean, I can't even remember. I remember there was a scene in one of his films. I can't even remember exactly which one it was right now, but it was a few. What was it? It was the song, and it was just like, wow, like that is the full package. It's blind. It's like just this is entertainment. I'm being entertained, in so many ways.
That's like Little Green Bag. The start of Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah.
It's just like, wow.
Yeah, so good.
What an intro.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Really, really cool.
Yeah, no, it's just it's a tough list to make, man, that top 10. And and I think even for me now, if I were to go back and watch a lot of these films again, that list would probably change again. Yeah, because
Nothing's for certain.
yeah. But no, I appreciate. I agree with Jackie Brown being right up there. I think that's a really cool film, and I think
it's the least spoken about film out of all of his films. I find that people don't really talk about it as much. But then when you do ask people, like for instance, with lists like this, it's surprising how high it gets, even though people don't talk about it as much.
It has those. It has that really nice love story in it as well between which is quite. It's sort of not something that you always get in his films, is it? You know, you don't get those love stories as such.
No.
And it's sort of, and then it's just well played as well, because it doesn't go into any particular territory with that love story as well. It sort of just has it there or thereabouts, and then the film sort of ends, you know, and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
And, and it's just, but it is a very clever film as well, the way it all pans out, and the different characters and the way it, it's well worth checking out for listeners out there who might be interested, if you haven't seen it, Jackie Brown. And
definitely.
What did you think of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? What were your reflections on it? You know, having it down the list there, and
So I found it's like mainly it just didn't really appeal to my sensibilities, because I can't really relate to that time. Whilst I appreciate his homage to Hollywood and his authenticity when it came to capturing that particular snapshot in time of the late 60s. Then again, it's another Leonardo DiCaprio that I'm not really obviously a fan of. And so, I only managed to get 3/4 of the way through. Stop.
Oh man, you got to watch the whole film.
Yeah, well, I found out. Well, stupid me found out spoiler-wise what happens at the end. It's like, I should have skipped watching.
Yeah.
Well, I think I will. I don't know. It's a real tough one.
I'll tell you a funny thing about that film that why I really, really liked it was because I actually had just listened to an audiobook prior to watching it, maybe how long before? Maybe a month or so before, about this plot around. I mean, just about, it was about Charles Manson actually, and about that was called what was that film? What was that book called again? It was by a journalist, and it was called Chaos. The book, you should check it out if you haven't. It's called Chaos. It's by a guy called Tom someone. I should just look it up right now, considering I've got Google here. But it's about the Manson murders and just the it's called Chaos: The Truth Behind the Manson Murders, and it's this guy did this like 20-year investigation into sort of. And he found out all this stuff about, you know, the CIA being involved with Manson and giving him acid, and they were sort of doing these mind control experiments on people, and so I had all that in my head when I watched the film, and so it sort of resonated with me more because it was that subject, and it had that Manson story in the background, and they went out to the farm, and you know, Brad Pitt's character went out to the where the Mansons were living on the old Western set, and so it was. And then I was dreading the end because I was like, oh man, I hope they don't show, you know, Sharon Tate getting murdered. It really. And then he sort of flipped the end on its head and did his own ending, and it was like, oh man, I've just ruined it for anyone out there who hasn't seen it. But no, I haven't actually. But yeah, so it was sort of...
Well, it's similar to Inglourious Basterds in a way, where how he flipped that on its head, and, you know, the ending to that film.
Yeah.
How it ended. No spoilers, obviously, for everyone's listening and they've never seen it before. But yeah, it's I should go back to rewatch that actually.
Yeah, it's just sort of. I sort of also found it to be quite a nice. I just thought it was quite authentic as well. Just that same thing he does with the film and like certain shots like that. The shot with the guy galloping along on the horse is like that's just like I love that. It reminded me of all these westerns I used to watch when I was a little kid. Like when I was only like, I'd be at my nana and granddad's and there'd be like a western on TV on Sunday afternoon or something, and I'd watch it and it'd be like you'd have these horse riding people and it just really took me right back to that when I saw that scene, and I was like, yeah, that's really cool. And
it's hard to believe at that time when there was so many, like how there's the whole story behind like Hollywood becoming saturated with Western movies. Like 20, 30 years of doing them and stuff like that. And then that's when you started getting your Scorsese's and your De Palmas and the directors who came out around that time, mid-70s, and it was all about gritty sort of films like French Connection and stuff like that.
Yeah, who was it that did? Who was it that did Tombstone? I can't remember who directed that.
It wasn't all Stone, was it?
No, maybe.
Did direct Tombstone?
Oh, George P. Cosmatos and Kevin Jarre. I didn't know that.
No, yeah.
I quite like that film.
Oh, that's a great film.
Yeah.
Very, very good film.
Yeah. No, hey man. Well, I'm actually the shows we've got to. We're running out of time, but it's been good talking to you about Tarantino this morning, and I've enjoyed hearing your list and hearing a bit about the brewing situation in Aussie there and so on. But as all good things come to an end, do you have like a song that I could play just to take things out this morning, like that you sort of maybe, I don't know, your favourite track at the moment or something like that?
Spooky by Dusty Springfield.
Oh yeah, nice. Oh yeah, that's a good track. I like, I'm a big fan of that. I actually, a couple of years ago, I was in Wanganui and there was a lady busking and she was playing it, and I hadn't heard it in years.
Oh, wow, I would have given her all the money.
Yeah, I gave her $10 because I was like,
good stuff.
Yeah, I hadn't heard it in so long, and then I was like, hang on, I know that song. And then she started singing, and I was like, oh my goodness, that's amazing. And I gave her $10, and then I was just like, thank you so much for playing that.
I would have given her $10 too. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, no,
I guess we should have played something in honour of Taylor Hawkins, but I'm sure there's going to be plenty of those going around today.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
No, cool, man. Well,
Dusty's always good.
Yeah, well, I'll play that, and take care and have an excellent Sunday, bro. It's always good chatting with you. I love you heaps, and take care over there in the Alps.
Yeah, love you too, bro. See you later, everyone. I hope you guys had a great listen, and do check out the films. It's well worth your time.
Cool, mate. See you, bro.
Cool. Thanks, man. See ya.
Yeah. Oh, so that was Lester Dunn. Friend of mine from high school, actually. He went along to Hastings Boys as well, and hails from the Bay of Hawke's Bay. We'll play his song now that he requested. It is a song that I'm a big fan of, actually, Spooky by Dusty Springfield, and it's a good way to take the show out this morning. Here it is, Spooky.
Some plans for tonight, and then I stop and say, alright, love is kinda crazy with a spooky little boy like you. You always keep me guessing, I never seem to know what you are thinking. And if a girl looks at you, it's for sure your little eye will spooky. If you decide someday to stop this little game that you are playing, I'm gonna tell you all the things my heart's been dying to be saying. Just like a ghost, you've been a haunting my dreams, but now I know you're not what you seem. Love is kinda crazy with a spooky little boy like you. Spooky, 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 ooh, spooky.
Yeah, so that's Spooky, Dusty Springfield, cracker track. Did hear that? I was lucky enough to hear that on the streets of Wanganui a couple of years ago, and I hadn't heard it in a number of years, and it actually, yeah, re-sparked my interest in that track, and I played it. I played it in the car soon after hearing it, which was cool. We're almost at the end of the show. Actually, we're coming up to 12 midday in approximately 3.5 minutes. So I could play one more track to take things out. And I could play that, but then I won't. Yeah, rest in peace to Taylor Hawkins. It's really sad to hear of him dying. Such an energetic figure in music over the years, and taken at the young age of 50, which is yeah, wow, what a surprise, what a shock, eh? But yeah, so I suppose I could play a little bit of Foo Fighters to take things out, and here it is. This is going out a tribute to Taylor Hawkins. May he rest in peace. Well, yeah, that's pretty much the show for today. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.